The April meeting of the Board of Water Commissioners, call to order. Reading of the minutes of the previous meeting.
I make a motion to accept them.
Okay. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Bills and accounts, we'll wait until they're completely audited. Binney Water Dam.
With the proposal from Trumbull. And for the packet. $293,900. And that would get us to 60% design by this September. And get dated construction going in for next year. And just a reminder that we have the water quality improvement grant for almost $2 million. So the sooner we can get it going, the more of that money, further that money will get us.
Okay. Has Jim looked at this?
I actually did.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
It seems reasonable for what the work's involved, but we list the task 5 to 9, which includes the final documents. The only thing that's missing is the design services during construction and construction management. That will be additional.
okay.
That's basically, resident engineer on the
Mhm.
job.
We normally issue that at the same time we issue the construction,
The actual
Awards.
bid, yeah, the award of the construction bid.
right? So, I mean, for most of us reading this, it's gobbledygook. We don't really understand it.
The numbers are there.
So, yeah, I mean, but I'm looking at what the project tasks
Yeah.
include and everything, and it's reasonable, so. If our engineer believes it's reasonable, we need a motion then to accept this, correct?
Yes.
Make a motion to accept.
I'll second it.
Any discussion, further discussion? Okay, those in favor? Opposed? Okay. Rules and regulations.
It's just something Bill had sent me
Okay,
on top of what
Now-
I presented here.
we have nothing in our current rules and regs.
Nothing specifically mentioning that.
And what would that be considered when, somebody would be tapping in, making those illegal taps or using, just going when, subcontractors or something are using the water or what?
Typically, it's what we see is either bypassing a meter,
Okay,
removing a meter, putting it on the floor, or straight piping where the meter should be and not having a meter at all.
Right.
That's the most likely scenarios that we come across, and we've been coming across them far more frequently recently. There's a lot of construction, a lot of old houses being rehabbed,
Mhm.
and when we see that and we know there's no meter, we have been following up on that,
Mhm.
coming across them at a higher rate than in the past.
So a house without a meter. Do we track that? I mean, we must track that because they're charged a service fee, right?
They are, and then we also look at vacant houses just in general, keep an eye on them all winter.
All right, I mean, we have the snowbirds that remove their meters on occasion.
Not many.
Not many now, okay. So
Isn't that we come in and remove them and then we
we reinstall them on a request.
It's very, very few. I mean,
Okay.
that's for the parks that It's really.
Okay,
hard to see
so-
where we do that, really.
Yeah, because it probably cost them more than it would be just to be paying the minimum charge, right? So, it's really kind of tracking those dwellings that have a water service to them without a meter. And we have an inventory of those. I mean, could you,
I mean, we're limited and we only have 10 people downstairs, so I mean, it's hard to track.
right, but you could go to your database and generate a list of those?
We do do certain things. So we have vacant lists that we look at. We have, minimums. So when a house has a minimum, all of a sudden we follow up on those after a reading is complete. So I mean, there are steps to try to figure out if a meter has either stopped or been removed.
Mhm.
Occasionally a meter will stop reading altogether. But in situations that
But
we come across.
you can generate a list of those dwellings that don't have a meter.
So it's just the inactive accounts. So we have.
And how many of those
I
inactive
don't know.
accounts? Okay. Couple hundred, okay, 50, 100, 200,
I'd say at least 3.
that's 300, okay. So just kind of tracking them. Okay, so.
So I mean, what's in there now, for purposes not named in the rate schedule, and for all peculiar circumstances, special assessments or contracts for the use of measured or estimated water may be made by the superintendent. So I was looking for something specifically for this issue.
Yeah, my concern here is being arbitrary and capricious and trying to figure out what the number would be.
Consumption charge number?
Well, it says, the superintendent has the authority to apply an attributed consumption charge to the property or individual in question. How does one determine what that consumption charge
That
would
one's a
be?
little different. The one that's
Right, the one that Bill, I'm reading off of the one that Matt sent out in our packet.
Is that answered in what Bill provided us, the 30 units? What?
That's what we did.
Ballpark.
I need to look at it. About 40 cents.
If you turn it on and turn it off, if they have it in there for now.
So, I mean, I was looking at it as, well, there's basically 3 scenarios. Either the owner touches the plumbing, which they shouldn't be doing. A licensed plumber touched the plumbing in a way that they shouldn't be by bypassing or using water without a meter, which they know they shouldn't be, or an unlicensed contractor or plumber in the city of Kingston did it. So, I mean, we've been reporting these to the building department when we come across them now. That's a relatively new practice, so the plumbing inspector is aware. But somebody did something with the plumbing that they shouldn't, whether they're licensed or not, they shouldn't be doing it.
It's another opportunity for us to then violate them.
To me,
Yeah.
somebody needs to be held accountable, and
Yeah.
we don't know how much revenue we lost, so to make sure we're covering any potential lost revenue and to deter them from doing it again. Because a lot of these, I mean, they're buying multiple properties, so it's not the only property they're gonna try to rehab at some point, and they were able to do a little construction with free water, what's gonna stop them from doing it again?
Should we say there should never be a connection without a meter? Or is what it said?
That is already in there.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it's, the requirement is that every service connection needs a meter, correct?
Yes.
So
So hooking up
when a person,
hooking up a direct connection, whether or not they ever use the water or not, was still subject to a fine.
right, and the question is,
And then the other question I had was, each day is a violation, so it's,
Yeah.
you go in on Monday and you say, listen, when did you hook this up? I hooked it up last week. So we got 7 times $400. Is that?
That's, yeah.
Well-
It's 70/10.
well, our fine is, I thought,
Mine was just about $50.
So
$50 per incident or per day?
Per incident.
So no plumber or other person shall open any curb cock or turn on the supply of water through any service pipe unless the department has installed a meter to measure the flow of water in the premises.
Okay,
And all licensed city plumbers should know that. I mean, I don't know exactly what goes into becoming a plumber, but I assume that's part of the city licensing process.
So you go and you find out he's done it. One of your people goes in on Monday and finds out they hooked up directly. What's your next step?
The
Well-
work order comes back to the office and we assess 30 units worth of water.
well,
And
we're,
they come in next week and they say, okay, I hooked this. As soon as I got notice, I wasn't supposed to do it. 4 days. So I never used it, but.
If I could, I mean, I think one of the things that, having a set firm, fee is good. And I think that what that does is it allows you guys to, issue the violation notice, and it's up to Matt and your counsel
Yeah.
to then work with the property owner and, determine that fee to be paid and whether there is a settlement that occurs as a part of that fee schedule. I mean, that is
Maybe it
really,
should be up to 30 units.
yeah. And I
well, how did we arrive at 30 units? Where did
That's
that
what
go?
we do.
We just talked, the thing is, it was $50. If we do it this year, $50, next year, $50 is worth nothing, you don't know.
I figure that.
But that's what we did. I mean, that's been the practice for at least 8 years. I can't speak to prior to that, but
The practice of,
theft of services gets hit with 30 units of water.
but we had no rule and regulation dealing with theft
It
of
just talks
service.
about estimation and events.
So that's where that $400 and $40
That's the
on
current rate.
for 30 units.
Then you
But we don't have that in any place in our rules and regulations.
not specifically for the theft.
So, I mean, I don't know if we want to, I don't want to mix the two issues up, the next on the agenda item, Hamilton Street versus this.
That's just a coincidence. It was all this was written and sent to Bill before that letter.
Right,
But
but
that's just one of the many that we caught.
But when in his response, he was asking about the fees, $50. I understand what the $50 comes from. That's the fine in our regulations.
He's
And then the
already,
$400.40.
he was told that we estimated 30 units of water. I mean,
Okay,
whether or not he's connecting those two based on how the bill looks versus what he was told.
and well, I have a concern, I guess, if we don't have in the rules and regulations that we could charge someone with that fee. If his attorney, I'm gonna sit there and say, well, where did this come from? Well, that's what he's asking, where did this come from? And we have nothing to point to say it's coming from section so-and-so of our rules and regulations. It's arbitrary and capricious. Okay. So, my only concern is if we put it in our rules and regulations, or maybe it's better not to put 30 units, but just put a dollar amount.
That's,
Oh,
I think.
Every year.
That's idea was having a higher amount, 30 units, it makes it, gives somebody, a reason not to do it. You make $50, that.
well, no, well, can you,
It's a deterrent. I mean, I would say the fee comes from section 51, where we have the right to estimate for peculiar circumstances, special assessments for estimated water. So we couldn't read the water. We have no idea. Why would you do it if you were using for a day? It doesn't. you had to hire somebody to do this, or you did it yourself. So you put the time, and effort into doing it. So I'm looking for a deterrent, not just.
Right, well, yeah, but I'm,
Because you don't know, if especially with construction, you got the danger of contamination to the entire system.
yeah, I'm
So
just
if you're
trying
gonna
to
hose
make
up
sure
to
that
a
we don't get
hose
sued
pit
for
basement,
where that comes from, that's all. Oh,
Yeah, I mean, I think actually, you know, if under our current code, you know, seemingly Matt has the ability to estimate how much, you know, usage he believes should have been metered that wasn't, right? I think that that's currently in our current language.
That's all I agree.
Basically, the superintendent has the ability to estimate, and if nothing else, this new language actually puts some limitations on the superintendent's, you know, ability to go outrageously high. Right, I think that this sets like a, you know, a 30-unit maximum. It could be up to 30 units. I like that language. They could, you know, the superintendent that flexibility, but I think in this case, it actually kind of in a court of law would actually give us a little bit more of an understanding that Matt didn't just say, you know what, I didn't like what you did, so you actually, I think, used 200 units of water. You know, compared to this where it basically says, you know, it's up to 30 units a day for, you know, having a connection per day, and then that is, I think, a basis of being able to hold someone accountable, where right now it's kind of like, well, Matt can say, maybe you use 5 units, and then the next person can say, you use 200 units. And that, I think, is a little bit, you know, if nothing else, I think this is actually a little bit more stronger. You know, so that's what I like about this.
You need a basis for the estimation. The old way, we didn't have a basis for the estimation. Like, just like you said, you can take the estimate from me and say, okay, I'm gonna say for you, Bill, it's gonna be 10 units, or your estate's gonna be 30 units, you know. That was my estimation.
and that 30 units would be per incident,
It could go up like per day.
per day?
Maybe we caught them again, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, this is basically like 24 hours of, you know, if we, the way I would look at it is that if, you know, we identify someone that has been, you know, taking the water, we issue this. If we find that they don't do anything about that.
When we
and if-
sever the
you
connection,
know,
if we go back and it's still there, they
Right.
put it in.
yes.
We don't leave it, because again, if they're doing construction, you're supposed to always hook up to service without a meter. Who knows what could get sucked back, the fire department opens the hydrant next door. We could be sucking the
Right.
whole construction back into the system. So it's not just the stealing of water, it's that you're endangering the system if it's a large property and you're doing construction
And this gives them, I think, the ability to kind of also hold, you know, people that are more egregious, even more accountable with this per day situation. Especially, you know, you could have a large construction site where someone is choosing to tap into the fire hydrant to water plants every other day, and they're trying to do it while we're not looking. One day they open it, they, you know, then they close it, and then they open it again, and then they close it. I mean, this could hold us and be like, you know, we recognize you've been playing games with us for the last 3 months. And, you know, you could kind of, that's just, we have hydrant issues also.
Stuff went out.
So what you have here and what you handed out just now,
that was Bill's version they sent this morning.
okay, does this replace yours? Or this adds to yours?
I can do it.
Do that. Matt drew it, sent it to me, and I redrew it,
Okay, so
replaced.
this, your proposal here replaces the previous one that,
I didn't want to go up to.
I didn't have the 30 in there, that one does.
I don't have the
Right.
superintendent's name in it, I took that out, I just said, you know, the word go. Violation is 30 units.
And so- this kind of works off the section of the rules and regulations that says that you can't, right, that you can't, you need a meter on a service. Now,
That section is actually just at the end where it says all of these need to be followed or else.
Right.
That is going to fit in. So it's the enabling legislation section.
It's also a criminal violation, it's a misdemeanor, punished by very death.
So we could go that route, I guess it costs APB at the time.
Or a question, a remaining question about who we'd be assessing consumption charge to. Language here says to the property owner or individual violator.
So, I mean, I threw that in there just because of hydrant issues, like if it's property that's, if the house, I mean, it just goes onto the property. Because it's for the account to be tied to,
Right.
if it's a hydrant, then it's more likely to be a contractor.
Or an individual.
Usually what,
Guy fills swimming pools, I mean, that one day I go back, I saw the guy, filling up his tank truck with the hydrant. He had come to the department, I didn't know that, but this guy went, and I take him, take over up the hydrant, fill up the tank truck and go to the swimming pool.
Mhm.
They, cost a lot of money.
Mhm. Yeah.
What are our intention? We always just go to the property owner and not the contractor that's doing the work.
most of the time, I mean, if they wanna have, like, if I hired a plumber that did something like that, I would expect to hold them accountable
But
first.
it-
But
where
it would go onto their bill,
Yeah, we would go to the
which
property
if it's
owner.
not paid, goes to the taxes, so yeah. So ultimately, it would be the property owner, if I were the property owner and my plumber did something
Oh,
like
yeah,
that, I would
absolutely.
definitely
Yeah,
expect them
yeah.
to cover that expense, but.
Yeah, I don't know how you would, well, I guess you would identify if a contractor is stealing from
That's a little more
a
visible,
hydrant,
that's more visible in a basement.
yeah, but I guess identifying it. I mean, what we normally do is we find through the bill,
Right,
but an individual contractor isn't billed.
and we've caught people doing that before, and we sent them bills as,
Okay.
and they paid them,
You know,
and we had one last year.
and that kind of gets into a longstanding concern I have of due process. That's on pretty much on all the ways we fine people is we fine them through a bill. Normally, if you're gonna fine somebody, you take an administrative action and you give him an opportunity for a hearing. Otherwise, he signs off and stipulates to the violation. No place in our process do we require the individual to stipulate other than them sending us a check for whatever's on the bill. So, I mean, we've had some of those previous conversations. It's just a concern I have about due process of the way we fine individuals of our rules and regulations.
Fine, it's a legal, but.
A penalty, well, a penalty,
That's
a penalty,
liability.
a penalty, whenever you're penalized an amount, you should have the opportunity to be heard.
I mean, that's the kind of, they do, I mean, this gentleman here is taking the opportunity tonight.
Right, well, I guess he's sending in a letter.
I mean.
To me,
he
it's
could've
normally
came,
you're heard in person by,
but we have that option.
yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I guess if we deny it, he has the opportunity to come in and appeal. So, okay, so I guess, we're gonna move forward on this, then I need a motion to proceed or accept one of these versions, or
The motion to amend the rules and regulations.
add section 49, or,
Section 14 already exists, so
is that in,
that's already in there, I believe. And so to a certain extent, just kind of changing it.
what's in there, what part of, this is an amendment to 49?
The top part, so A is already there.
Okay, so this is adding section B or paragraph B of section 49 of the rules and regulations. Okay, so I need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
accept or to section.
paragraph B of section 49 of. Okay, got a second? Okay. So is there, I guess, formal discussion, even though we've had a number of discussions on this issue prior to the motion in the second? Everybody's. Okay, those in favor of this opposed? And it's carried. So how do we deal with the issue then if, well, you said we have 300 of dwellings that have water service to them that don't have meters. Those dwellings are probably in
Yeah,
various
it's a-
states of
The
disrepair.
estimate, I mean. I
Okay,
don't know exactly. I mean, we monitor it. It's not something we don't monitor. It's just, again, we have 10
but is there
people.
some other way other than this regulation that we can cut off the water to those properties and force those people to come to us
You know,
to turn the water
we can
on?
remove their service.
I mean,
It's always a problem turning off residential water.
well, this is a building that's not habitable.
So in that case, we can get rid of the active service line and force people to disconnect active services if they're not using them
And they would do that where?
at the street.
They'd have to dig up the street.
But that's the only way to keep somebody from using water,
Okay,
because every plumber in the city of Kingston has
Has
a
a
way to
cur-
turn it on.
and currently, right now, those 300 properties,
But it's not just the properties without meters, so I mean, you could just as easily drop a meter on the floor.
well, true.
So then you got 8,000 you gotta watch, which we do the best we can. with.
Well, yeah, I mean, there, you do that on a routine basis by, you know that they have a meter, it's just that somehow somebody did something to the meter in the previous quarter. Right? I mean, they're using 6 units a quarter.
I mean, there are vacant houses that haven't used water in forever, but construction all of a sudden starts, we're not gonna notice it by looking at the usage.
Right, you need a meter.
But some of these vacant houses have meters in them still.
Oh, okay.
And they're paying the minimum bills, or they're letting the minimum bills go to their taxes. So there's no foolproof way to monitor.
So if there's
them
a,
all,
if
or
there's a,
just when you drive around, you just keep your eyes open and you look for things that are new, like a vacant property having construction happening, whether there's a meter in there or not.
all right. And the city building department, they don't routinely let you know if there's been a building permit issued, I guess.
We see building, if you pull a plumbing permit, we see it every day,
They send you everything.
it's all online.
Oh,
It's all
okay.
on the system. We see every one of those.
There's just a lot.
Yeah, it's a
Right.
lot to do.
Right, well, you have to, okay, the guy,
You're never gonna catch everything.
the guy's got a building that's got a meter and he's paying his water bill and everything, and he goes in and files a building permit for some innocuous thing, and you know, you're gonna just say, okay, well, fine, we already got this guy. Just trying to see if there's any way to tighten up everything.
Yeah, I think what, we, and Matt suggested before, and, is just continuing to, communicate with the plumbing inspector, with the water department to be able to make sure that we see something or, that we're relaying that, as well as, if Matt knows of an issue that he's relaying that to us, we can help each other and do already help each other. And, we've put more resources into having a full-time plumbing inspector, and, we've had, better staffing levels there. And so I think that, there's a collaborative relationship that has formed. But I would say that, I know while we do end up having these issues pop up, but out of 8,000 plus water services, this is not, I don't believe, a rampant issue, you know, I think I don't know if we come across in a year, but like we're talking
No, it just
like less
seems
than
like-
a dozen, most likely, but it is just, you know, I think it's important that we have all of our, you know, ducks in a row on how we handle these so that it doesn't become more of an issue going forward.
Okay, well. The amendment to the rules has been passed, right? I had a vote,
Mhm.
okay. So. Oh, bills and accounts, jump back up to bills and accounts, they're edited. Motion,
You can,
Oh, I'll make a motion to accept, sorry.
second it.
and those in favor? Opposed? Okay, so now we're getting to correspondence 24 Hamilton Street.
So this is a $50 fee because of the meter. And excuse me, what was the 400?
Well, that's what we
the-
basically were just.
That's the attribution.
So we're kind of,
Since my excuse is I was doing bills and accounts.
okay,
So
So-
this is the amount that Matt felt as though was used potentially during that time frame, that there was no meter attached to the
Okay.
property.
Okay.
and if you have to
Hmm,
testify to how you would came to this amount, is there some type of methodology that could be used other than the fact that we passed it?
Typical house would use 20 some units. And
A quarter?
Yep.
Okay. But we're finding him,
we don't know when it was hooked up.
all right,
That could have been that for a year.
so.
I would say typically 30 units is probably light on cases where you're doing construction. Because if you just leave your hose running, you know you're not being measured.
Yeah, I just don't know if someone's gonna do that just to do that, to mess with us.
We should find out who the plumber is.
Yeah,
That's
can we-
why I alert the building department.
Mm,
That's, I
okay.
can't do anything with the
Mm.
building department. Yeah.
Well, can we ask him who the plumber is?
I mean, I could find out by looking at the plumbing permit, assuming there is a plumbing permit, but
Mm.
Have we installed a meter yet?
yes, I believe we have.
So when did? Okay. So up until this point in time, when did this guy come into our office?
He even says earlier this year.
Right,
He came in, he told the staff here that water was being used for cutting tile.
Didn't say it, but
He does not say that in his letter, he says for testing, but the staff here was told it was for cutting tile. And I don't know what else, I mean, construction purposes,
Mhm.
but I mean, it does not say that here, it says the plumber was doing testing. But again, my argument is the plumber knows better.
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, why are they what are they testing? We test it all the time.
For leaks,
I
I would
get it.
assume they wanted to pressurize the house to make sure the pipes aren't blowing. But again, the plumber should know better.
Right, I would like to know who the plumber is, if we could ask him who the plumber is. Says, I wish my plumber had told me to install the meter sooner.
Mhm.
Well, this plumber,
I don't know, I mean, how long does that take to find? 5 minutes? I guess you can go look.
I'm actually looking at them.
Oh, you have them?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all online, it's public
Yeah.
information.
That's what I was gonna say. Pull it up.
This plumbing permit was issued in August, it was inspected in August of 24. And this is Carl Bell.
who?
Carl Bell.
Carl Bell?
This is the installed water line. For sinks and a bunch of other things. So we inspected in August and it passed, and it was a rough down inspection. We also looks like the plumbing permit actually issued in September of 2023. Yeah, and that was the applicant was James Kulisek.
Who was Kulisek? He's the plumber?
Well, the owner was Scott, which we.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, maybe the other, it's either a different plumber, or a different owner, but usually the plumbers apply for them, so I don't know who that. And so it's possible that he's had two plumbers,
Mhm.
one who did something and then maybe the other fix something. Possibly.
To me, I mean, if we build a property owner, he can go after the plumber that did it, if he feels the plumber is responsible.
Right.
As a department, I don't know if the plumber really matters in terms, we have no way to come after the plumber.
And do we know when this guy purchased this property or this house? I mean, we've been billing him the service fee, right? Up until this time?
First permit came in September of 23 for demolition of asbestos.
It sold on May 5th, 2023, according to Zillow.
So that's, so I mean, and so I think that's why your estimate of how much water, I mean, if they found out, if we didn't find out until, this, March, that the water was being used. They have been working clearly on the house since
For a year and a half.
a year and a half without a meter.
Of any kind.
And so clearly.
Well, I guess,
I mean, I think that it should come down to also the plumbers should be fined if they're not installing meters.
yeah, we don't have the ability
The
to,
building department, so they can figure that out.
yeah, that's a referral.
On the building departments, do they do things like that?
Yeah, I think they issue
They do?
violations.
Oh, yeah, they
I don't know
issue
the process
violations,
exactly,
but is it fines?
Oh, I don't know exactly what a violation for a building department.
Yeah.
Is there a monetary value?
There's violations and then they can lose their license if they don't do the right, but there was, just for the record, there were two different plumbers.
Mhm.
Seeing that the James person was this first plumber.
And that was in
That was the September.
September of 23. And then sometime Carl Bell got involved,
In
August of 24. Okay. Is there any other questions? You saw the response, which is basically a standard denial, right?
Yes.
You want to, you want to maybe just specify that 440 cents as the attributed consumption charge? We need a motion for this bill? For this denial?
The motion to deny the request for the fees to be rescinded.
Second.
Well, he's not asking, he's just asking, provide me an explanation.
Yes, I guess it is already been denied.
Well,
Well, we are going to give them explanations.
Yeah, I guess I could write them a letter back just to say, you know.
Just say,
Permits that were issued, it looks like you've been doing work on the house since September of
Yeah.
2023, and
Three
there's
with-
been no meter in the house for a year and a half.
I
and-
could basically
And this is a
remove the
very
first.
low estimate, if that's been.
Right.
yeah, I don't see, he's asking for an explanation at this point in time. He's not asking. So maybe you just don't say we're denying it, it's not, he's not asking for us to
Yeah.
remove the charges, he's asking for an explanation. So,
How to reach that number.
right. And actually, you could probably say,
It's very low
it's
estimate.
very, so low,
Yeah. Yeah.
Very bottom, it does say, I would like to settle this in a way that seems fair to both of us. That, to me, that implies that he wants to come to a number.
well, I think if you give, well, you know, otherwise I'll hire a lawyer, that's, you know, threatening you to
Yeah.
do more stuff. I think if just say, you know, like the mayor said, you know, city records indicate that you were issued a building permit or a plumbing permit in 2023. Obviously, you've been doing construction work on the house, including plumbing work, and without a metered service. And so the $50 is a fine or penalty, and the 400 is the attributed consumption charge based upon that number of months or quarters that you've been using water. And if he, leave it at that, because I don't think he's just asking for an explanation at this point in time.
Sounds good.
Okay. And if he comes back, then we'll deal with it when he comes back. Superintendent's report?
I got another.
Okay, another correspondence.
Oh, it's done my first time.
It is.
Oh, this person, huh? I don't know. So who actually, when did the city actually had ownership in?
Yeah, so we've owned this property since like 2021. And so we took it for back taxes. We then had to move a couple of tenants out that were living there in unsafe conditions. And then, so when we first bought it, we closed off 2 of the units and turned off the water. But it's a row house, and so they're kind of on separate water systems. And so the other 2 we left on, and then we moved the tenants out, and then we, you know, kept everything working in the building, the heat on and everything, just as we were going through this sale process, which took a while.
So when was it fully vacant?
Shortly after we took ownership, and so we owned it. We owned it for at least 2 years, and with it fully vacant.
Oh. So you took ownership in
21,
21
and then tenants out.
and by 23.
We were there in January 2023 to shut water off in one of the other apartments, buildings,
Yeah, the
separated.
yes.
But it was fully vacant.
By the time, generally by the end of 23, right? 22, yeah.
And so these water charges are from when?
Well, the water charge is actually just related to a break that happened.
So the first one happened in January 23. I did ask that the water be shut off at the valves and the meter be removed. That didn't happen, and then in March it blew again. And had I known they were going, I probably wouldn't have let them in because of the condition of the house. I really wouldn't have sent my guys in there. But they went in, they shut the water off again, and we obtained the meter back a few days later, or that day, whatever it was, and an additional however many units went through. I have it here somewhere.
So what's the amount of all the water charges associated with this property that we're asking to?
Water is $608.55 for 145 units of water.
And is that from the break?
Yes. Or something was leaking before, and that water went through the meter at some point before we took the meter back.
And the meter was removed when?
When we shut the water off.
March of this year.
March 10th.
And so this 145 units is from what point to what point?
I mean, I would assume most of that was that day or the day before, whenever it was recognized.
And the break was in,
March 10th.
huh?
March 10th.
On March 10th. Okay, and then what's the status of the property now?
It's now been sold. And I think the closing occurred on March or 21st, right?
Your letter says March 21st. They don't do actual closing, so we really have no idea when the closings happen, but your letter says 21st.
Yeah, that's generally when I think.
You know, when the count was turned over to the new owner, right?
We get a letter from Corp Council, but it's after the closing happens, so like, we don't do final readings for these properties.
Generally,
We are notified.
yeah, and the city also doesn't generally pay for water, so I don't know how that normally works when we transfer properties over.
It's messy.
It's messy, yeah. Thankfully, we hope to not have to do this very often, but I think our team has gotten, tried to get better at, like, when we do take properties to like close them down, and now that we have our new housing director, but there's some of these properties that have been, challenging over the years, this one being one of them.
So, Mr. Flynn, I know in the past we said that if it's a city-owned property, they're exempt from, you know what?
No, it's just the reverse.
Oh,
City has to pay for it. The Attorney General says the city has to pay for it.
Thank you. One opinion. I think we generally disagreed with that opinion. So, but,
Why do you say the new buyer? I don't understand why the new buyer would be assessed for it.
The charges follow the properties.
Should be addressed with those.
So what is not an official closing.
I think not have an official closing.
I mean, in terms of the water department, there wasn't a closing, but we don't do a final reading for these properties.
Why not?
We don't know that they're happening.
So the buyer buys it without having to, I mean, they must have gotten title on it. The title must have said that the water charge or something to be paid by the seller.
well, who purchased this?
I
Never heard.
yeah,
okay being LLC or.
Okay, but it's a private individual. I mean, anybody could have purchased it from the city, right? They purchased from the city?
They took the subject to the outstanding water charges. Did they know what the water charge would be?
I don't believe so. I mean, it didn't happen until a week before they were closing. And we didn't know until after it already occurred because the work order hadn't made it through the rounds in the office.
The leak was on the 10th. The transfer of the property was on when? The 21st.
And the meter was taken out
On
on the 10th.
The meter was taken out on the 10th.
But by the time it made it to the office, it was on the first.
So the purchaser, when he bought the property, should have ascertained all water charges that he paid up to the date left, you know, he can do it. So he could be subject to that, right?
But generally speaking, city property that are not used as like concession stands or co-owned like the stadium, all of the rest of our city properties are metered, but don't pay for the water. And so that's, I think, also confounded the city staff billing issue here. Because no other city property pays for the water. We're metered, not all are metered yet, but the goal is to get them all metered.
Are there other properties that the city has taken over for taxes that have meters that, so what's the status of those?
I think tried to get metered out of most of them or have shut them down. But, and yeah, I don't think, because we have 9 that we're about to transfer to Rusco, and I don't know.
I don't know offhand.
Yeah, we don't have many left. We only have about 9 properties that are city owned, 9 or 10 that are city owned that are on their way out to other, nonprofits for affordable housing. The closing should be any day, but I think most of those they've been vacant for, some of them have been vacant for over 10 years. So I think most of those have had their meters turned off and they've been winterized and.
But the meters are still in there.
Well, it depends on how the winterization occurred, whether the water was turned
And
off.
it's kind of similar to the,
So essentially, you're saying when the city sells the property, unlike other closings, what they do, they represent to the buyer that we, the city, will be responsible for all water charges up to the date of closing.
It's
So what you're saying,
right.
is, since it was our expense, we would like the city, and other property to waive this expense.
Because technically the city approaches these properties as anything that happened during our ownership, that there were no expenses. Yeah. We were handing these properties over free and clear, basically, that as, government property has now been transferred and there's no outstanding issues. And some of these people also still have problems getting title insurance and some are buying them without title, because these are generally tax foreclosed properties, so they're messy to begin with. But generally, when we sell them, they're kind of like, they're sold, they're authorized by the common council at a set fee. And it's just, it is what it is, regardless of anything.
You represent, you can clear title to it without any outstanding.
Yeah, when we were.
If there was a lien, it's your responsibility. Technically, since the city doesn't pay for their water, it could be waived.
Yeah, I just need a board motion on that. That's the way it's gonna go. So I can remove or have the staff remove them. So I don't know how to do that stuff.
So I don't think it should be waived, it's just a buyer. I mean, technically, you're not waiving it on behalf of the buyer, you're waiving it on behalf of the seller, it's the city.
so, yeah.
Because they represented that they were transferring the property with all water bill paid.
That is the request.
I know the request was the buyer, but it really should.
Now, the request that came from the mayor.
No, it says here that it's requested that. Therefore, Madison Water Board, the new buyer of this property should not be responsible for the charges.
Yeah.
What they're saying is we, the city, were responsible up to the date of closing, therefore they should be
Right.
assessed against us.
Right, but we don't normally change, the policy has that we don't charge the city.
Well, that's your answer.
Right.
Yes. It's the charge of the city, responsible for the city up to the date of closing, you're going to waive that bill.
We need a motion to do that,
Yes,
even though that's been our standard policy.
I think it'd be safe.
Okay. Does the mayor want to make that motion?
Maybe somebody else should. I'll make the motion.
Does the mayor want to second it?
Second.
Okay. And Joanne's technically out of the office. Maybe should we wait for Joanne to come in?
We share a phone call, share.
Right. I mean, I guess with three, I guess it's a vote, right? Or going to ask, or just wait for Joanne to come back in.
You know, this has to.
Yeah. What else? Just the superintendent's report?
I got people, thanks.
No, I got more. Hidden things on the agenda.
I mean, I got executive session and then I have some, not really more updates than anything else.
I don't know. Prefer to have Joanne in here.
I had an update on the roundabout.
Did they take the money back?
So, last meeting I had said based on the numbers I had seen, we were expecting.
Do we need
to
an
get-
executive session or not?
Nope.
No, okay,
Well, we can finish with
okay.
Delaware first.
So we've concluded that our policy has been that we don't charge the city for water. And since the city owned this property, we're waiving the charges. So there's been a motion and a second to do that. We were waiting for you just for all the votes, since we only have a small number of people here today. So those in favor of waiving this bill, those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, carried.
So the last meeting, I told everybody that, I mean, everybody knows I've been fighting with New York State to get our money back to the roundabout since the project ended 3 years ago. More than 3 years ago, I guess. But anyway, based on the numbers I had seen from people in their office, I was expecting at least $156,000 back. Shortly after our last meeting, I got word that we were actually getting back $233,000, and that money is now in our account.
Yeah,
Good job, Matt.
yeah.
Thank you. I never want to do that again. It was
Yeah.
painful.
No more
Between the
betterment projects
Between the
for us.
comptroller and DOT,
Yeah.
it was painful.
They pay interest.
No, we did not.
Of course, and if it was the other way around, they would have, yeah, well, you sure would have.
I mean, unfortunately, it's 3 years late because it's about, you know,
So how much did,
it's like 60% of the borrowed money we have to bond, unfortunately.
how much did we actually bond for? Did we send them?
Like 580, or we sent them a check for like 537, I want to say. So they sent us back the majority of the money.
It only cost us
Well,
three,
I mean, we had to pay interest. 'cause we had to
Right,
bond it.
well,
We couldn't
yeah,
keep the
but-
money, and this has to sit in a bank account for the next 18 years. And it can't be spent more than $13,000 a year. So really all we're gonna get is the interest off of the money as it dwindles down over 18 years' time, which isn't nothing, but it's not gonna cover what we had to spend, but bond the whole thing, unfortunately. But
basically, that's what the term of the bond is then, 18 more years?
yeah, so it was bonded 2 years ago.
Okay, so that's where that's where the 18-year comes and they just
So it
divide
sits in there
18
every
into
year.
the
We will take that
233.
18th of the money and pay towards our expense. So instead of 25,000 in principal, we'll pay 13,000, 12,000. I should do the math right, but yeah, no, 13, 12, whatever it is. It's like 12,000 and change each year for the next 18 years.
Okay.
So, but yeah, we got it back. It's in our account, so it's not ours. Again,
Okay, great, thanks.
so that's
Finally.
And then just to clean up that debt account, since we do have that money in there now, and I want to be able to track it, there's interest in there right now that we had gotten from the Cooper Lake money. I would ask the board for a motion to transfer that out into our general checking. It'll also help with the cash flow for the big expenses for these bond payments.
So this is interest,
That's in the debt service account. We had created that back when I first started, because originally the money was all kept in the general checking, and then we moved it out to the general debt service account to track it. So I would ask that we transfer $84,796.26 out of the debt service.
$84,700
$96.26. And that'll give us a clean slate on the debt service account. It'll make tracking this money and whatever we earn on this money.
and that's going into our checking account?
Yes.
Okay, all right. We have a motion for someone to do that?
I'll make the motion to transfer the money.
Okay, okay, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Carried.
Just one more thing. I sent an email to the board about posting a vacancy. I haven't quite got to that yet, but I just wanted to again run by, but nothing,
Yeah.
just looking. I mean, it might take 6 months to find somebody that fits the role. So I'm hoping to post the HMAO in the next week or so.
Okay,
Our website, on Facebook, all over, and see if we can get an operator and a driver. And then when I find somebody, if I find somebody, I'll bring it to the board.
so who do we have? This is for an HMO,
Yes, I have a machine operator.
right?
So
And who is our,
there's not anybody in that title right now. We have Bucky and Pat that dig.
Bucky's in another title,
Yes, he's the maintenance
supervisor,
foreman,
foreman, and Pat is,
assistant.
okay. So this is an actual title for
Yes,
An
and it's
HMO
pre-existing, it's just there's not anybody in it currently.
but we have two people who are qualified
This
currently,
would be below,
right?
but yes.
But you need, what do you need to be an HMO? What-
CDL, experience operating.
Okay,
I mean, I can give this to you. We're already sent it out to everybody. So class B, CDL, tanker endorsement, 26,000-pound vehicles. Clean driving record, ability to pass DOT tests for drugs. Operate equipment. Hydrovac. Perform maintenance. So. And then just the various tasks that all the positions have to do, you know, labor, repair water mains. So, I mean, nothing to do right now, just again, I know I sent an email out, but I still intend to do that unless somebody has an objection to me looking.
nope. Sounds good.
That's all I got for the next day.
So the only other thing is the superintendent's report then? A big grant from the state really throws the
It does.
income off. I'm going, wait a second. Otherwise, it's down around 26%.
Well, wait till next month when 233 from the DOT shows up and
Oh, it's true, yeah.
that's gonna get worse, but.
Is that,
Not worse, but it's gonna look.
I guess you gotta show it in
Yeah,
income, right? Because it
It's
comes in, but then.
it's prior year expenses reimbursed, that's what it's gonna show up under. So it's not a line we've ever had before, but it's gonna be, but it's gonna make everything look off.
Yeah, because it's not usable income, except for that.
That is not, I mean,
Yeah.
really the grant isn't, I mean, it's already been expended, so it's, you know.
Okay,
Unfortunately, those numbers aren't gonna be as clear as they always are, but we have explanations for why they're not, so.
any questions on the superintendent's report? Otherwise, I'll accept the motion to accept.
I'll make a motion to accept it.
Second.
Okay, those in favor? Opposed? I see our elevation is good, we're full, right? As
They're
of,
top dog as of today, as of then too, but.
we got quite a bit of rain though this last week or so, right? You know how much? Don't have it, yeah.
But.
We were fine, it's like,
We're taking water and it's still overflowing, we're in Colorado, so.
Oh, it is
it's not an issue
overflowing.
for us.
okay,
We are spilling in the spillway, so no concern with water.
time to put the flashboards back.
If we did that, we might flood out. Like, right, we can't do that anymore.
Who said that? Huh? I guess accept the motion, nothing executive session, right?
No, I do have something for,
Oh, yeah, go in executive session.
yes.
Okay, motion to go in executive session.
Aye.
Michelle. Didn't even know you were there.
I'll second.
We're now out of executive session. So, normal session. I can read this motion. Be it resolved that the Board of Water Commissioners hereby approves the terms of an employee-related agreement dated February 21st, 2025 between the Kingston Water Department, Local 750-6, Council 66 asked me, in the employee number 2825 as presented to the board at this meeting. We need a second to that.
I'll second.
Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Guess we can adjourn. After a motion to adjourn.
Sure.
I'll second.
Those in favor? Okay, thank you, folks.
Yeah.
And